Hello guys, very welcome back. In this video we'll be learning about what are the components of watershed management, or what are the components of catchment area, right? And some of the components which helps in watershed management, right? We'll learn that what is watershed management. Okay, let's start. Now there are roughly 4 components of catchment area, right? Slope, soil, vegetation, and a link between upstream and the downstream, that is a river. Now breaking down the system into various components, right? This is known as systems approach. Now the components interact with one another and there is an equilibrium. For example, if slope is altered from a gentle slope to a very steep slope, right, there would be more erosion. In this case there would be more rills be formed, there would be gullies found, then there would be ravines which would be formed, right? And since we know that ravines are not good as far as the fertility is concerned, there would be greater erosion, there would be no trees, and that would lead to overflow, that would lead to flash floods, right, affecting humans. Okay, so we saw just how one of the components, if slope is altered, this would indirectly alter the soil type, it would directly alter the vegetation, it would lead to the river overflowing, right? So this interaction between one component with other component, such that their interaction strengthens and a further better equilibrium is maintained. This is known as a watershed management. Okay, now we'll see now what are some of the activities which strengthens this component, the interaction between this component. Now the first activity is trenching, right? Now normally in hilly areas water gushes down along the slope. Now if we make depressions, this will lead to water percolation due to gravity, right? This will help in recharging the groundwater via percolation. Finally the groundwater accumulates when they find an impermeable layer, right? Now the reason why groundwater percolates is they have their natural tendency to meet the groundwater, right? Now the thing is, in hilly areas, this accumulated water above the impermeable layer gushes out as there is more water percolating, and this leads to spring, right? And when check dams are made, which is known as Nala in Uttarakhand, it is a very important source of income for fresh water in the hilly areas, right? Now the thing is, so more there is trenching, more better would be the level of these nalas, these check dams, right? So as we learnt that these depressions, which causes the water to slow down, keeps the soil moist, keeps the spring recharged, it prevents the soil erosion, right? And it also controls deforestation. Now apart from humans cutting trees for timber, there is also forest fire which is currently happening in Brazil. It is also one of the main source of deforestation. For example, in 2016 Uttarakhand forest fire, one of the main reason was the drought, and this drought was further aggravated because the pine needles which drop off from the trees, they have resin which quickly catches fire. Now when these trenches are made, it keeps these needles, these inflammable needles, very moist, and hence the forest was controlled. Okay, so this system of trenching in Uttarakhand is known as Chalkha system. The next activity which strengthens the relation between the components and helps in Watershed management is terracing or contour bonding. Now what happens is that as the water gushes out, we can make bunds, and so that water's speed is halted, right? So there is less erosion, and in this area agricultural activities could also be performed. Again, it will lead to water recharge. Groundwater recharge will lead to better spring in hilly areas, right? Apart from this, many tribes in Arunachal Pradesh, for example, the Apatani tribe, perform Aji system, where apart from making bunds, they also make trenches, right? Where they keep the fishes. Now the fish excreta act as a fertilizer for the nearby rice or another crop. The paddy is grown on these terraces, and the trenching is used for the fishes. Next is water harvesting. Now, diverting the meltwater of the snow to the agri field via small channels. Okay, so this is known as water harvesting. Now this process is known as cools in the Lahul and Spiti of the Himachal Pradesh, and it is known as zings in the Ladakh region. Nala, I've already told you what is Nala. Nala is like when you're making check dams and to harvest the water, right? So these are also the activities which are part of the watershed management, okay, because it will increase the integration of the components, okay. So Nala in Uttarakhand. Next we have Zabu. Zabu is like a rainwater diversion to the agricultural field. Now many a times these rainwater is passed through the cattle's dung, so all the minerals are also transported for, and this is known as the manuric water, okay. After that we have johars, right? So johar is like when you divert the water to your field, and this is mainly seen in Haryana, Rajasthan, Western Uttar Pradesh. Apart from that, the slow water movement, the check dams across the rivers in Maharashtra, right, so that the water moves slowly. There is dredging being done, and this leads to increased percolation. That particular thing is known as bandhara, okay, in Maharashtra. After that we have bamboo drip in Meghalaya, where network of bamboo sticks is put, and drop by drop water leads to better irrigation, right? And supari and cashew nut is grown in the Meghalaya region. Okay, now in Gujarat region, across the agricultural field, right, in the center there is a tank. It is covered underground, right? This is known as tanka. In Tamil Nadu there is systems of water storage. It's known as iri. And in Bihar, the carrying rainwater from one area to another area is known as ahar painis. Okay, and finally in Kerala, horizontal wells are dug along the mountains to store the water. Okay, so this is known surangam. Okay, apart from three mentioned activities which further deepens the relation between the components, right, the trenching, terracing, and water harvesting, afforestation is also any kind of afforestation also improves, is also one of the activity. Changing cropping pattern according to the local area is also one of the method, right? Next we'll move to what is exactly planning watershed. Now the centralized planning was ineffective because it was like a top bottom approach, right? So this ineffectiveness is removed when you will follow a bottoms up approach. Moreover, when you will involve the local communities to be part of the plan. This is because local communities are the people who at the least resources can tell you what are their needs and where exactly they are facing problems. Okay, a person living in any part of Mumbai can't make plans without taking into account the people of Nagaland. Okay, so first, many parts of Shipra, right, you make plans for like 10 parts of Shipra, integrate them, this becomes micro watershed. When many rivers like Shipra and others, they are integrated and made a plan, it becomes the watershed for Chambal. It could be small watershed, so on. We move to mini, subwater, and finally we come to the Ganges watershed, that is the macro watershed. Okay, in 1977-78 we had the desert development program, but it said that in hot desert we need to stabilize the sand dunes, and in the cold desert we need to provide the drinking water. But it was not very effective, and in 1994 we formed the Hanumant Rao Committee. It said involves the locals in planning and do more watershed management. Okay, so after that this desert development program was integrated into integrated watershed management program in 2008-2009, right? After that came the drought prone development program, right? So it started in 1985, right? Was the integrated wasteland development program, where it said the soil salinization and soil erosion has to be checked. Okay, so these things, all the schemes were integrated into integrated watershed management program 2008-2009, and this was further subsumed in Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana 2015. Okay, which says first of all, per drop more crop, har khet ko pani, and jal sinchay and jal sinchan. Okay, it's based more on micro irrigation, and it is implemented by Ministry of Agriculture, Water Resources, and Ministry of Rural Development. All right, so in next video we'll start with the canal irrigation. All right, so let's summarize. We talked about what is a water divide. Okay, we talked about what is catchment area. Okay, then we talked about what are the different components of this catchment area, and the various linkages, right? The better the linkage between the components, that is slope, soil, vegetation, and river, the better they interact, the better is the equilibrium. The better is the equilibrium, the better is the watershed management. Then we talked about what are some of the activities which strengthens the relationship between these components. Okay, so the activities are trenching, the activities is terracing or contour bonding, the bonds along the contours. The activities are also the water harvesting. Any activities related to afforestation and changing cropping pattern, that is sowing crops which are drought prone in less area having less water availability, right? So these all relates to activities, right? The very same activities which help strengthen the relation. Finally, we moved to what is planning watersheds, where we said bottoms up approach is the ultimate solution, but you need to involve the local communities. Finally, we saw what is the government doing as far as this scheme is concerned, right? That is Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, right? So that's all. Thank you.